Black Feather Intuitive, and welcome to Divinely Decked Tarot and Oracle Reviews done Stacey style. And first of all, I just want to apologize for the weird lighting. That's why we're just kind of going with the hands and not so much the face today. It's where I record, and it's that time of year, and this is my recording day. So it is what it is. Please have patience. So today we are going to be continuing our sign language series that explores all of the different signs of the zodiac and the card decks that embody the characteristics of each of those signs that come from my own collection. And today we are exploring Scorpio. And so our first Scorpio deck that I chose today is the Ethereal Dreams Tarot. This is by Mind's Eye Playing and Model Society. And let's talk a little bit about the Scorpios in our life. And by the way, this is if you are a sun, moon, rising Scorpio. And this is also if you have a Scorpio in your life that you love. So everybody can benefit from this particular video. So Scorpios, they tend to be a little secretive. They are the people that are great listeners. They're going to take in everything that you have to say. They're going to ask you all sorts of questions about what's going on with your life, with your world. They're interested in you, but don't necessarily expect that same level of disclosure in return, unless you're really in the inner circle. And so there's that. I want to say that a really good listener, but also someone who can hold a lot of secrets, who can handle a lot of secrets, but also doesn't want to necessarily give up those secrets either. So for the most part, someone that you can trust, unless of course, everybody is a little bit different. But for the most part, someone that you can trust with your deepest, darkest secrets, but not necessarily someone who's going to share their secrets with you. Also, we understand Scorpios to be, I find the Scorpios in my life to be quite nurturing in the friendships and the relationships and connections. Very nurturing, very loving and caring in their own way. Also, I want to say a bit introverted a lot of times in the ways that they sort of recharge and connect with the world. Social when they want to be, and then very clear on their boundaries when they don't. And you never, I want to say, you're never really, you're always going to kind of know where you stand, I want to say, when you're dealing with a Scorpio energy. And, the astrology of Scorpio also is really about death. It's the phoenix energy, death and the darkness, the muck and the mire of things, dealing with the shadow work, the shadow self, money, finance, things of that nature. So the Ethereal Dreams Tarot is a card deck that is very artistic in its approach. And I chose it because it's sex and death. And it's kind of on the nose with the scorpionic characteristics, but that's what we're doing here. What deck do I have in my collection that talks about the Scorpios that I love? And this is it. It's designed by a card deck designer, like playing cards. A playing cards designer that decided to throw their hat in the ring with tarot. So we're seeing the Jack, the Page, the Knight, the King, the Queen, the Joker, things of that nature. This is a card deck that, from a tarot perspective, that I don't actually use to do readings with for myself personally. I use this deck, I want to say, as an enhancement deck because it is so gorgeous. Everything about this deck is gorgeous. It's, as you can see, it's darker in its imagery, but it is really it's featuring the male and female form, showing a lot of that sexuality and that sensuality. There's wisdom. There's a lot of moon energy with this. Scorpio is a water sign, so ruled in a lot of ways with that, sort of that moon energy coming into the mix, the beauty and the flow, dealing with things that I want to say aren't super obvious, aren't on the nose. Here we have a Gemini card that's thrown in here. So they do a little bit of astrology in this deck as well. Here we have the Two of Diamonds. I believe diamonds is wands, if I'm not mistaken. Here we have the moon card. I'm going to have to skip through some of these just because of the nudity. so that YouTube doesn't shut me down. Clearly, you can see here there's a lot of sensuality, right? This indicates, oh, I've got it upside down. So sorry. It's indicating pleasure, it's indicating self pleasure, right? So that's a Scorpio thing. Scorpios are all about talking about sex, talking about the taboo stuff. But also, like, no, they know their value and worth. They know how to make money. They know how to what they want out of life, and they know how to get it. They know how to create it. And this deck really embodies that on so many levels. You know, when you're looking at this deck, there's no doubting each of the figures in the on the cards and in the imagery knows what they want. You know, I want to say there's a certain level of confidence here, level of abandonment. Like I'm doing, or not abandonment. I'm doing this with with abandon. Like, I don't care. This is who I am. This is what I want. This is how I feel, and I'm living it. I'm doing the deep dive. I'm going into the depths of the shadow. I'm going into the depths of the ocean. You know, the last unexplored frontier that is on the planet. I'm in charge of that. That's part of my sign. You know, that scorpionic water energy, the water element, the magician here. So they're touching on some of the, I want to say, the more traditional symbols of the Rider-Waite-Smith Tarot, but then they're just kind of taking their own tact with it. The Empress energy. So yes, this feels very, very, very scorpionic to me. The beauty of it, the focus on the body, the physical body, the focus on the female form. Here's a Taurus card. The deck itself, it's gilded in gold. So, you know, it understands luxury. It understands pleasure. It understands focusing on the good and the new, and I want to say the physicalities of life. And it does it in a really beautiful, beautiful way. Here's winter. So they've got some extra cards in here, which I think are really cool. And, you know, the only reason really why I don't use this deck very much is because it's based on a playing card system. And so I just haven't bothered to take the time to learn, how to make that work for me, like to understand it entirely. And, you know, it would take me probably an hour to devote to just kind of memorizing a few things and getting used to it. But I love having this deck in my collection just because it is all the things that it is. It's artwork. You know, it's beautiful artwork, but this just screams Scorpio to me. And I have a Scorpio bestie, and like that whole deck just makes me think of her. The second deck that I have chosen from my collection is J. Edward Neal's Dark Fantasy Tarot. And this is a fairly new tarot deck in my collection. And this also just, I mean, it screams Scorpio. To me in this regard. So let's take a look and see what is what's coming up here. So it is a traditional deck in that it can be reversed here. It's got a really good card stock, card quality. It's on a sort of a sateen finish, so you don't have a lot of the glare and the flare. And it's really basically dark fantasy. It puts me in mind of being in the underworld, and Scorpio is all about the underworld. And so this is kind of a really unique approach to the tarot by coming at it from the I live in the shadow, and what is my life like as I'm living in the shadow? Where am I finding the light? How am I growing and expanding? What does my ascension look like? And I absolutely love this deck because it gives you a completely different perspective on the soul's journey. And in my experience with the Scorpios in my life, that is exactly what they do for me, is they give me a completely different perspective, a different way of looking at the world and my soul journey and the soul purpose and their soul journey and how they see their soul purpose living out. And so this deck really just screams that to me, you know, because the Scorpios can do the deep dive. Like I said, they can hold the secrets, they can hold the ick and the muck. They can do really well with holding it. They can help you transmute it as well. They're going to cut to the chase. They're not going to hold anything back. They're going to let you know what they really think about it, how they really feel about it. But at the end of the day, like, they're dealing with these things. Like, I can go and say to a Scorpio, like, my worst thought ever, or my worst, the biggest thing that I have shame around. And I can tell my Scorpio friend, and my Scorpio friend is not going to judge me, because they're like, oh, I have the same thing too. Right? Like, I did the same thing, or I have the blah, 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 or, okay, well, that's, how human of you. Like, okay, everybody believes that or feels that or has had that experience. They just don't talk about it. So I like this deck because it really highlights that dynamic when you are connected to a Scorpio, that they're nurturing in those ways that I feel we need to be nurtured when we are dealing with our shadow, when we are dealing with the icky parts of ourselves that we're not necessarily proud of. And this deck, I love the fact that, it is kind of that darker imagery, almost like a horror movie kind of imagery, but the use of color is really powerful. When we do have color, here we're seeing the High Priestess, as above, so below. We are still seeing parts of, I want to say, the middle world or the upper world. We're just seeing it from a different vantage point and a different perspective. And so if you're coming from the underworld, what is your version of ascension? What is the goal that you're working towards from that soul perspective? And Scorpios, who deal with death and rebirth all the time, it's that Phoenix energy. This is their wheelhouse. This is what comes naturally to them. So if you are ever really struggling in your life, in your world, and really struggling with something that maybe you're not proud of, something that you want to change about yourself, talk to a Scorpio, because that Scorpio is, they're not going to sugarcoat it. It's not going to be warm and fuzzy, but it's going to be, I want to say, like a camaraderie piece. And they're also going to have some really great guidance and assistance on how you can move forward, how you can, like what you can learn from that and how you can apply that, so that you don't have to feel so badly about it anymore. You're able to process through it and understand why you made those choices, or why you said those things, or why you've been feeling the way that you've been feeling. That's definitely, I want to say, that's where the Scorpios really thrive. That's where they really kind of shine their light. So that is the Dark Fantasy Tarot, J. Edward Neal. Like I said, a new deck to my collection, but one that I really enjoy and definitely feels very Scorpionic to me as I connect. The third deck that I wanted to feature today is Into the Shadows Oracle. This is by Mercy Morgana. I featured this on my channel before, but this deck really is, for the purposes of this video, this really is like so Scorpio. Just so Scorpio. Here's why. It is on the most beautiful rose petal finish cardstock imaginable. It is an oracle size. It is super high quality. You're looking at this and you're going, wow, like, this is something to behold. This is something that you stop and you take notice. You're drawn into this deck. This is a deck that I'm like, okay, it's almost like it's a bit of an illusion, because you're like, ooh, looking at the back of this is going to be so beautiful. There's going to be so much, love and delicious messages and all the rest of it. And it's true, but they're messages of the shadow, not of the light. But here's the other thing. And this is what I was talking about in the Dark Fantasy Tarot, is that your Scorpio friends provide nurturing. It's just a different type of nurturing. And this is the deck that I feel does it. So take, for example, the Orphan. Experience brings empathy. I can tell you right now, my Scorpio bestie, this feels like something she would say to me. I'll say, I feel abandoned. I don't have anyone that I can, go to, or nobody loves me. Everybody hates me. I'm going to the garden to eat worms. And she's going to say to you, okay, well, what experiences, have brought you to this point? Like, what choices did you make that got you to this point? Because now, like, let's look at the silver lining. All of this happened, but what are you learning about it? You're learning to have more empathy. When this happened to so-and-so 3 years ago, and you were, not very empathetic about it, now you can understand it. Now you understand it better. So like, it's that guidance that just gets right to the heart of it. And that there's a nurturance to that. There's a refreshment when it comes to someone who's just going to be direct and honest with you, but not from a judgmental perspective. More from the, hey, been there, done that, or that's kind of a normal thing, or yeah, I have those thoughts too. Like I'm not afraid to live in the dark as well as in the light. And a lot of the Scorpios, they prefer, like, they're like, the dark is more fun. So let's have a little more fun in the dark. And we'll come up to, we'll come up for air every once in a while. We'll come up into the light to recharge. But, there's some fun that happens in the Shadowland too. So release, let it go. And I love that this imagery is so beautiful. The colors are very deep and rich and jewel toned, but they're muted. It's like you're looking at everything at night in the moonlight, right? Or maybe it's not a moonlight, maybe it's a new moon, rather than a full moon, and you're not getting a ton of light around it, but yet there's enough of life there to really be able to view it from a different perspective. Difference, there's beauty in diversity. Confrontation, two sides to every tale. I like that it's bordered in white. So again, that scorpionic energy. It's not that all Scorpios live in the dark. I don't want to give you the impression that all Scorpios are bad. That's such a bad cliche or stereotype. What I'm feeling here is the Scorpio just enjoys the contrast between the black and the white, the light and the dark. And I love that this creator chose, the dark everything, and the white is the trim. It's the border. So it surrounds everything, but it's not necessarily the point of the energy. And that's very Scorpio. Very, very Scorpio. Running, confront what you avoid. Yeah, my Scorpio bestie does not let me avoid anything. She just puts it right in my face. The Lover, seek healthy expression. The Warrior, a hero's journey. Kindness, embrace self-compassion. This is beautiful. I love the hummingbird. Excuse me. Desired traits, thoughts become reality. So there's just a lot about this deck. Okay, you make a better door than a window, Fuzz. Sorry about that, guys. The colors in this imagery really just speak to me, and they speak as though it's reminding you that the shadow sides of you are just as important as the light, what's exposed. The hidden is just as important as what is exposed, and the Scorpio energy encourages that. And again, they might not share entirely with the whole world what they're thinking and feeling and all the rest of it, but they're absolutely going to be that person that's going to be able to help you to work through some of those darker things, help you to work through, I want to say, the shadow work that you have to do. There are some Scorpios who are decent therapists, because they do hold those secrets and they can nurture you, but they're going to be not the sweetsy weetsy loving, going to give you a pillow and put a blanket around you in bed. They're going to give you what you really need to be able to understand why you've done what you've done and to be able to move beyond it. So that is our Into the Shadow Oracle. And the final deck that I've chosen for our Scorpios is maybe a little on the nose, but I could not include this, is the Death Doula Oracle. And obviously, if Scorpio is about sex and death, the Death Doula Oracle fits right in. And what I find really interesting about this deck is, like, look at the contrast from the deck that we just saw. Into the Shadow, everything is the dark and the black, and the white is the enhancement, the pop of color. Here, everything is white and gold. It's the void energy. And when we start to look at the imagery, you're going to be kind of blown away by this. First of all, I just want to say that the book is really pretty comprehensive. It gives you the meanings of each of the cards, but then you can go deeper and it tells you how to work with each of the cards. So each of the cards has its own built-in ritual. Now, sometimes it's a meditation, sometimes it's a journaling exercise, sometimes it's telling you to connect to the moon or an affirmation of sorts. But it's definitely, I want to say, like a workbook to really help you work through, I want to say that, shadow energy. So these are extra big, which I absolutely love. Excellent cardstock. It's a little on the thinner side, but still excellent. It feels really good. It's kind of that sateen finish. We have some gold gilding on it. And it's really about the pure potential. And so we'll just take a peek at the imagery. Very much scorpionic, artsy and artistic in unobvious ways, in unexpected ways. It's the kind of art that some of the images might make you feel a little uncomfortable when you're looking at it, because a Scorpio is always going to want to encourage you to go deeper, and they're going to observe you. They're going to be curious to see how deep you can go. How willing are you, to go into those territories where no one else wants to go, because that it's the death. Scorpios understand that death is a part of the life cycle. We need to have that death in order to be reborn. And I would argue that Scorpios are very much about that, wanting to always be in the realm of the phoenix, the realm of burning something away so that I can create something new and different. Scorpios, and again, this is generalizing. Each person has, different things in their chart, but Scorpios typically are not looking for, I want to say, what's the word? Like traditional stability. They're going to, like, they want to know where stuff is, like they want to have some kind of foundation, but their whole goal, I feel, is really to tear down what needs to be torn down so that they can build fresh and create new, looking for the new, because they enjoy the death process and the rebirth process for the most part. Truth, look at that. So we're seeing some kind of, dead log or dead tree of some kind. It's a very interesting shape. They've superimposed some color and some light, a little bit of the crystals dropping around it. I mean, like the images are not obvious. The images encourage you to go deeper, to take it like 3 levels deeper, not just a level deeper. It's like 3 levels deep. You're going in, you're going all in. You're not going to get away with anything. You're not going to get away with surface level exploration here. You're going to do the deep dive. And, some of the images are really beautiful, and some of the images can be really uncomfortable. I love this one, pleasure. Like, it feels like we could be looking at someone's skin from an unfocused lens, maybe the curve of a leg. We could be looking at a sunrise, a sunset, a horizon, a desert horizon. The colors are very much about sacral chakra energy, which is definitely scorpionic in nature. There's so much that you can take from the imagery if you're willing to really lean on in. This is the cover image that they've used. Calcination. Isn't that fascinating? So you're seeing leftover Chinese food, maybe. You're seeing chopsticks. There's interesting lighting. They're using a lot of like unexpected texture in here, superimposing other images over images, so that it's almost like you don't even know what you're looking at. You have to go in deep in order to figure it out. Vortex, virus shutout. So they even have little words and things. So very much a scorpionic thing. I want to say as well, Scorpios, with people that they don't trust, with people that I want to say are kind of on the outside, sometimes Scorpios can kind of fuck around with them a little bit. And so they like to test people to see, sort of where people land, on the scale or on the spectrum of whatever it is that they're judging in that moment. And they want to see how deep this person is, not because they're mean and cruel and trying to play a joke. It's more about what kind of connection can we have? Is there connection available for us? And so they're going to encourage you to go a little bit darker. They might say things, kind of on the nose that purposely ask you different questions about yourself, or that purposely cause you to ask interesting questions about yourself. Sometimes it can be uncomfortable, but I feel like a lot of the scorpionic energy does that on purpose because they want to find out what you're made of. I love this one, the void. This is probably one of my favorites in this deck. So, guys, that is our Scorpio sign language video for this edition of Divinely Decked. I really enjoyed sharing this stuff with you guys. I hope you enjoyed the decks that I chose. Please feel free to put anything in the comments regarding what you thought about the decks, maybe some decks that you might choose. Having gone for a little bit of a deeper dive into those Scorpios that you love, or if you happen to be the Scorpio in your life, let me know if you agree or disagree with my choices. And otherwise, I'm so excited that I now am able to offer memberships connected to my YouTube channel. So if you want to go a little deeper, if you want to stay connected and stay informed, please click on the join button. I've got 3 different options there to choose from so that we can keep the conversation going. Until I see you for another episode of Divinely Decked, I'm sending you guys lots of love and support. We will see you on the flip side, and transform well. That's our show for today. I hope you enjoyed it. It was great to connect with you guys. Please like, subscribe, and comment for more content like this. And feel free to follow me on Blue Sky for even more content every single day. Can't wait to see you guys next week for another installment of Black Feather Couture, Divining the VIP Life.